Greetings and welcome back to the channel. I am working on the trikes today because after the last ride I noticed a few things about the ELB's trike that needed to be fixed. Let's see what they are. So after the last ride I went out with the ELB. It was another Friday lunch ride. I was noticing as I was riding behind her that her right front wheel was kind of wobbling a little bit. I said, okay, let me look at that. Probably spoke came out of tension or something like that, and so I have to fix that, which is fine. I mean, that happens. If you recall, the Vortex 2 that we have here, this bike, was one of the bikes that was underwater, completely underwater in a hurricane. So I'll link to that video here, but that's been some time ago. And I had to rebuild the rear wheel on this trike because all of the spoke nipples, well, not all of them, but many of them were corroded and some of them were broken. I didn't do the front wheels because at the time I didn't think I needed to do that. But now it's starting to show some wear. I have replaced a few nipples here and there, but not many because they're red and they're kind of cool looking. So what I'm going to do is show you what it takes to just replace one or two spoke nipples. I'm not going to rebuild this whole wheel because I don't need to do that. And I'll show you what I found on this front wheel here. So I've already let the air out of it, but you can see it's got just a slight wobble to it. So I was going to go around and tighten up the spokes, and I thought, okay, let me tighten up these spokes. And as I'm going around and looking at stuff, let me see if I can get this in focus. So as I was putting the spoke wrench on, trying to tighten stuff, the spoke wrench, I put it on and it just kind of spun around and I couldn't figure out why. And that's the reason why. If you can see, it's really hard to see, but you can see there's a crack right in that nipple. And so I'm going to inspect the others. At this point they're not cracked, but this bike was underwater and so could have, you know, contributed to some corrosion and things like that. So I've got to replace at least this one, but I'm going to check all of the rest of them to see if I have any other cracks. And then I'll have to re-true the wheel to get that wobble out. So that's the project for this afternoon, is to fix this wheel. Eventually I'll probably rebuild these wheels because of the corrosion that's on there and weakening those spoke nipples, but eventually I probably will replace all the nipples in both of the front wheels. Even though they're red and they look cool, I've got replacements that I'll put in there and rebuild the wheel. So here we go. So now what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of tension on that spoke and I'll check all of the other spokes around it, and then I'll true the wheel to make sure that it's still running smoothly and straight. And I'll check all of the other nipples to make sure I don't have any other cracked ones or broken ones. If you remember, building a wheel really is about taking your time and to make sure everything works and make sure everything's smooth. One of the things I forgot to do was the broken spoke nipple head is still in there, so I'm going to have to take off the rim tape and find it because I can hear it rattling around, but it didn't come out. All of these spoke nipples are really corroded a lot. I was wondering why I was having such a hard time with the focus and my autofocus had turned off. So there's the spoke nipple. I found it, now I just have to get it out of there. And there it is, dropped out. Just make sure you do a good inspection and make sure you got all the pieces out and make sure that these pieces go together. And they do. I can see where that spoke nipple used to fit together just like that. And now it doesn't. So now that I've got all the pieces out of there, I'm going to go ahead and tighten everything up and get the wheel true again and put it all back together. One of the things to remember about truing a wheel is just to take your time And you don't have to have any fancy stands or anything like that. Now if you want it perfect, then of course you're going to want a wheel truing stand, because then you can put gauges and calipers and all that kind of stuff on it. But for something like this, where you're just changing one spoke or one little problem on it and it's just a little bit out of round, you can usually eyeball it pretty well. So if you set it up to where your wheel's not going to move, especially on a trike, I've pretty much got a wheel stand built into it. So now all I got to do is just kind of find the little wobbly spot, tighten it up, should be good to go. Now, one of the things on this bike is I already know where the wobbly spot should be, right here, because this is the spoke nipple that I had to replace. So that'll be one of the areas that I'll look at to make sure that it's going right. The other thing to remember is I didn't put any tension on it until I used a spoke wrench, because that's what you want to use. If you don't have one, then I suggest you go buy one if you want to fix your wheels or do anything with your wheels. So I'll put some tension on this and check the wheel out and see. So I got just a tiny bit. Okay, so from what I could see before, I could see quite a bit of a wobble, and I couldn't figure out how come it wasn't coming out, because I was tightening spokes and I couldn't get it to come out. And now I see just the tiniest bit of wobble, and that's because now there's tension on all the spokes. So now I probably have to find all the spokes that I tightened previously and loosen them just a little bit. But now it's just got the tiniest bit of wobble in it. But almost not noticeable. So you notice it when you spin it fast. There's just a tiny bit of wobble there. So I'll work to get that out. So I'll find where it is. It's right here. Right here where I put in the new nipple. So I will give that another, about a quarter turn. See if I can bring it in a little bit more. And I'll loosen the ones that were around it, because I know I tightened those. This is after about maybe 15-20 minutes at the most of working on truing this wheel. You remember how it was before. And this is how it is now. So, is it perfect to where if I put gauges on here that it wouldn't rub and that it's perfectly round? No. But just doing it by eye, just after replacing a single spoke, and you can do this if you break a spoke or if you break a spoke nipple. This is really all you have to do. You don't have to take it to a bike shop to get it trued or anything like that. This is something that you can take care of on your own. Because even just if you see in the wheel the tiniest amount of wobble, you really got to look at it closely, and you can see it. It's still there a little bit. But if I were to take this off and then put it on a truing stand, then I could do that. Unfortunately, I don't have a truing stand right now. I would love to get one. If that's something that you feel you'd like to buy for me, great. Park Tools makes them. They make one, it's like 300 bucks, I think. But for now, for this is really all that needed to be done to true up this wheel, because then when you put the tire and the inner tube back on it, that little the tiniest bit of wobble and the tiniest bit of bump is not going to be noticeable on the ride. So there you go. That's really how easy it can be to true a wheel. I'm not saying that every wheel will go this easily. In fact, sometimes they don't go nearly this easily. You end up rebuilding the whole wheel because you find more cracked spokes or something like that, or spoke nipples that are broken, or spokes that are broken, or whatever. But I did an inspection on all these, and all these are fine, and I was able to bring the wheel back into true pretty easily. Not perfectly, but pretty close. So that's it. So thanks for watching, and until next time, cheers.